Okay, let's have some fun with lighting. First, go to File, New Level, make sure you're going to an empty level, don't save, go to Windows and enable the Environment Light Mixer. I have it already enabled, and usually it will be separate windows, so just drag it here and dock it to the content browser windows. So create skylight, create atmospheric light, create sky atmosphere, volumetric clouds, create height fog, and now you see how fast it is. You already have a decent lighting already. So next let's create a house. So well, it's very I cannot call this a house, but let's create something like a room. Make sure to create our floor, hold Alt, get the ceiling, so this will be our ceiling, hold Alt again, drag our box, and now we need it to snap. So enable snapping and go to 90 degrees, press E for rotate, and just rotate it 90 degrees. Now we have one of our walls. Again, Alt, duplicate it, rotate, snap 90 degrees, scale. Let's move a bit to here so we can see what we are doing. Again, duplicate this white, and now we have this room. If I move this, we have different shape here. So let me get inside this room, and now first, I don't know if you see, but if I look here in the shadows, it slowly starts to illuminate the darkness, and if I look into the sun outside, it's getting a darker shadows. Well, we need to fix that because it's very annoying and I don't like it. You probably don't like it as well. So go to Visual Effects, go to Post-Process Volume, and make sure first to do it infinite extent. This will make sure that your volume is affecting our whole world and not just inside this box here. So next we need to scroll up, and here we need to find exposure. In the exposure, just enable the first three options and disable here, disable the apply physics camera exposure, and in the material mode just do manual, and now you see our scene change a bit and our lighting is very uniform. So if I go into the darkness, it doesn't illuminate and it's complete dark here. So okay, we have complete darkness, but that's not very cool for the interior. How can we actually illuminate this interior? So let me show you something first. If we go here and go to shapes and get a sphere, let's get a sphere and put it around here. Let's put it up, and next let's actually put a light, and I'm going to choose rect light. You can get a point light, but with point light we have a sphere basically. The point light is a sphere, and it has a lot of harsher shadows. Well, yeah, sure, you can increase the source radius and so on. However, what I prefer to do is to go to lights and get a rectangular light. And from the get-go you see we have these softer shadows here. And to make sure we have this better softer shadows, for example, if I do something like 300 and 300, and make sure this is closer, now you're going to see that we have these jagged edges here. And yeah, the shadow is kind of soft, but not really. So how do we change this? How do we fix this? Before we continue, we actually need to make sure that we have the correct settings. So go to project settings and go to rendering. It's down here, and if we scroll down in the global illumination, make sure you're using lumen. In the lumen tab, make sure you're using surface cache, detail tracing, make sure everything is enabled here, just like me. Make sure hardware ray tracing is enabled and support hardware ray tracing. However, if you have a bit outdated video card that does not support ray tracing, you are not going to be able to use this option. So make sure that either you have updated video cards. Most recent video cards from NVIDIA will have this option here. And yeah, we need to close this window now. And to make this shadow a bit better, a bit softer, all we need to do is select our light, in our case rectangular light, and type ray. Type ray, and you're going to see here cast ray traced shadows. It's used project settings, but not really. So now we need to enable this, and immediately you see the difference. Let me go back so you can see it. From this to this. This is the magic of ray tracing. And if we remove the ray tracing, we can just go back to something like 2020, and now you see we have the more harsher shadows, but still they're pretty soft. So as you noticed, I changed the size of our light, and our shadow softness changed with it. And this applies for every single light. If you change the size of the light, it will change the shadows. However, let's delete this light here, and now let me show you how you can illuminate this scene. So let's select our directional light. There are a few ways to do that, and you can use a combination of them, of course. First, the most basic way is to actually go to intensity. Select your light and put something like 100. And now you see we have some illumination inside our shadows, inside our interior. However, if you look outside, it's pretty blown out. I mean, this is, if you go outside, if you have exterior, I don't think that's a very valuable option that you have. However, if you have interior scene, this can actually be pretty good, because if you're inside a room and when the camera looks outside, or you see a window if you have a day that has a very nice sun, very strong sun lighting, you will see this white in the camera. However, let's get back to 1, or rather 10, sorry. And let's explore our other option. So if you go to, again, indirect directional lighting, sorry, and in indirect lighting intensity, if you change that to something like 20, for example, you immediately see that our room is kinda illuminated. And now we have more light information inside our room, and it's very soft, it's very nice. So what is actually, if I select again directional light, what is the indirect lighting? Basically it's the lighting bouncing from the objects and creating this soft result, soft shadows and soft lighting inside our interior. And this is a way to do it. However, mind that there is a very important thing that you need to have in mind. If I select our wall here and go to the material, open the material, and now here, if I select the color and change this color to black, for example, you will immediately see that our whole scene inside becomes black, because our object value or color, it's actually very important when you are doing indirect lighting, because the lighter the object, the more light bounces it will have, and it won't consume the lights, the rays. For example, black consumes a lot of lighting, a lot of light, so it's very dark, if that makes any sense. But yeah, you can control the illumination inside your room by just changing your color as well. Sometimes it's not the best option, but you need to have it in mind, because sometimes you may have put a dark wall and you are wondering why it's so dark. Do I need to put 1000 illumination here? But if you do that, your other objects will be pretty bad. So yeah, let me also show you. If I go here and if I grab just a shape, get a sphere, and now we have the sun, and select our sun, and you see very harsh shadows, but if you want to make the sun bigger, if I look in the sun here, you can make the sun bigger with source angle. For example, you can make it 100, and now you have a very big sun. And if you notice, our shadows became softer. No, again, not the very result that we want, because you see here we have jagged shadows. Let's decrease the illumination so we can see it better. And yeah, we have this result, and we can fix this again with typing gray and changing this to enable. And now you see immediately we have softer shadows, but you see the sun is never going to be this big, so it's not the best option for the sun. But if we have, for example, sun that's this big, like 10, you can kind of get away with the sun, and you see our shadows are a lot softer, and we have very nice result here, right? And this is a way to make our shadow softer even with the sun. And you can do that with every single light that you have in Unreal. So make sure to do it if you want a softer shadow. Okay, so we learned a few things, and we learned about shadows, we learned about lighting and so on. So let's create some lighting. Let's lit some levels. So I'm going to open this study level that I did, and I'm going to disable the lights here because I don't need them. And again, we're in complete darkness. Now what we need to do is again go to Environment Light Mixer or Windows, enable it here from the Windows, and dock it here. So yeah, make sure to do that. Let's create our skylight, atmosphere light, create sky atmosphere, and create fog. We already have volumetric clouds, I already did them. They're not very pretty, but they did work for my shot, for my cinematic shot, so this is what we're working with for now. And right off the bat we have some lighting that's not so bad, right? I mean, it's not good, but it's a decent lighting, and you have this immediately. Just a few clicks, nothing more. So again, let's fix our problem with exposure. Let's get a post-process volume. Make sure it's infinite extent or unbound. Scroll up, go to exposure, go to enable the first three options, and get to manual, disable this. And by the way, this exposure compensation, just you can control how much exposure you want into your scene, so you can actually make your scene lighter with this option as well. Because sometimes you don't want to modify lights, you just want to make your scene brighter. However, in my case, I don't want this effect, so I'm going to put it to 1. And you see now we have some lighting. And if I select my directional light and let me move it here, and we can rotate it, but first let's remove the snapping. And you can rotate it and kind of get like get a lighting that you want. So You see the sun is here, and yeah, I'm trying to do some kind of interesting shadows. Let's see if we can do that. You see, if I go here, it's pretty shadowy. So here the sun hits these guys here. Okay, so next thing that we can do, of course, it's do our indirect lighting intensity. And if we put it to 10, for example, let's see what happens. Maybe 10 is a bit too much, isn't it? So let's make sure our directional light has indirect light intensity to 5, and let's select our skylight and make sure we have real-time capture and set the intensity to 0.5. So what happens if I set it to 0, for example? You see we have these very strong shadows, very black shadows. That's not very desirable effect. And if you can fix this with indirect illumination, but it will blow out the rest of your objects. What we can do is just put this, for example, if I put it to 1, you see we have less harsher shadows, I mean less darker shadows, but now it doesn't look that well. So let's do something like 0.5, and here now we have some lighting that's decent. It doesn't look too bad. It's actually, I kind of like it. It's not the best, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. If you look to the sun, you have this nice effect. However, there's some other stuff that you can do as well here. So let's do them. Well, if you go to exponential height fog and you scroll down, we can enable volumetric fog. And now you see, I don't know if you noticed here, let's disable it. You see now we have a lot more warmer and interesting scene here, right? And we can, let me show you what happens if I increase this to 0.1, for example. You see now we have some foggy scene, and if I scroll down, you'll see here in the volumetric fog we have this scattering distribution. Currently it's 0.2. So if I move this, you'll see we have different effects depending on so if it's like this, it's all over the scene, like 0.5, around 0.5. And if we go 0.9, now it's a lot more. You see, if you look into the sun, it's very foggy there in the sky, right? And if I go, for example, down, the sun is not foggy, but I guess you cannot see it, but I guess you can. Here down below us, we have this fog, this incredible fog that's coming below us. So let's do something. I don't know. You can pick your own fog settings. This doesn't look too bad. Let's see what we can do. Also, this is not too bad. This is not too bad for this scene, I guess. Maybe let's see. Maybe something like that. The fog coming from the sun a bit. and right now it's well, it's too strong, so let's make it like this. Now when you look at the sun, it's a bit foggy, and we still have some fog inside our scene. So let's compare the results before and after. You see it gives this nice, warmer, softer look to our scene, and it creates some depth, because here you can see very clearly we have very sharp objects, and here we have a bit more foggy, just like in real life. And the next thing we can actually do is we can have some interesting god rays. So how about we do that next? To do that, we can just go to our directional light, and here go to our volumetric scattering, and let's do 100, for example, just so I can show you what happens. Now you see we have god rays, but they're a bit excessive, if I may say so. So how about 10? What happens when I do 10? Again, this is again too foggy, and we can like disable, I mean reduce the fog intensity, but we can do like 2 here. Let's see. That's indirect, sorry. Let's do 2, and now they are not that visible, you see. However, yeah, we have them here, but we can put something like 5 or 10, and you see we're going to have some god rays coming from the trees, and you can control the god rays, the intensity from here, or you can go to exponential height fog, and in here, this value, if you remember it, we can play around with it, and you see if I go slowly, if I do it slowly, you will see what actually happens from this angle. If you look here in the tree, and you see the god rays, and if I slowly decrease this, this is what happens, and if I increase it, this is what happens. It's very concentrated in the sun. So you can do something like this if you want. It's all up to you. You can create your own scene. This is very bright, but if you look at from this angle, and for example, if I go to my scene here and go to perspective and my camera, this is how it looks, and I can actually like I can modify this value, so at least in this angle that my camera is, it looks good. So you don't, if you're making, for example, a cinematic or a shot, you don't actually need to make it look from every single angle. You just need to make it look good in this angle that you need to do, for example. And we can go again here in the directional light, volumetric scattering intensity, and we can, so you can make sure your directional light is have volumetric scattering intensity at 5, for example, in my case, and in directional light intensity, this is the bounce of the lights, of course. I did 5 as well, and if we go to our height fog, I have this fog density to this value, and here we can play around, of course, with this, and you can play around with it and make it look good for your current shot, because if you're making a cinematic or you are making just pictures, you don't need to make the lighting look good from every single angle. you just wanted to make it look decent in the angle you're gonna shot it in. So in my case it's this angle here from my camera. And also another thing, if you go to directional light and if you enable temperature or just change the color, you are going to change your scene mood, for example, like this. You see? And if I put it something like this, which is very warm color, next thing I do is go to the skylight and put it to blue so it can complement the sun color. So if the sun is warm color and the highlights of your object are warm color, you want the shadows to be a bit bluish, so you have some kind of contrast between the shadows and the highlights. So that's why in the skylight I do it with light color, because the skylight illuminates the shadows, and you can see this bluish color here and this reddish orangish color here, and you have a nice contrast on this particular object. And if you don't like the indirectional lighting to be this strong, you can always decrease it to 2, for example, and you can have a bit more contrast, you see. This is all the things that you can do to improve your scene, and yeah, it's pretty nice stuff, and you can have some decent lighting from pretty much tweaking a few stuff. It's not really that complicated. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'm looking forward to creating more, and I hope you are gonna watch them. And if you enjoy them, just support me by subscribing or liking the video. It helps a lot, and yeah, thank you again, and see you in the next video.